Is the secondary the biggest and most important unit to be coached and developed?
Yes, I don't even think it's close.
Okay.
We have two of the best specialists in America in Dylan Joyce, the punter, and Andres Borgao is the kicker. We have great return options because we have dudes with, speed and wiggle. We have um, bodies and talent at linebacker. Wesley Basaint really looks like a linebacker now from the pictures and video that were out there from day one. Kiko Mawanoa, best player on the defensive line. You got more talent you can shake stick at. I saw so many tweets from people today who were like, yo, Tyler Barron is a unit. What in the world? And that's the defensive end transfer from Tennessee who, took a 3-week vacation to Louisville or whatever. Offensive line, we know is one of the best in the country. Wide receivers, we went, recruited really well, got a top option in the transfer portal. Quarterback, running backs, tight ends, continuity, and then reasonable change in the coaching staff and everything. It's all aligned. The question marks, secondary. And I know that, there's some people who are hyping it up, like everybody has their favorite, players that they report about and favorite positions. I've seen some whispers of some people like, I was really close with this kid, in his high school recruitment, and like they're gonna really surprise, or it's like, I'm just kind of attuned that way. And I think we'll see. But of the units on this team, the secondary most definitely is the one. Now you do have Daryl Porter at a corner, who was pretty locked down last year. But all the other 4 positions, safety, slot, and other corner, are up for grabs in rotation. So we'll see. And those of you who are playing college football 25, if you are playing with the Miami Hurricanes and have been playing with some EA Sports created players, because I guess they didn't get the signed waivers from some of the actual Miami Hurricanes who would play in the secondary and been getting torched in these games. Happened to me also, thinking that there was going to be some talent there, and those guys are not in the game right now. It's just like, whoa. So it'll be interesting. They need to show and prove, but I definitely would say secondary is the big thing. Also, backup quarterback, you just want to see how they develop, because Cam Ward clearly is the guy. But holistically, the secondary is the thing to look at.
We've got our guy Casey, and I got to say, I'm going to this question with all due respect, Casey, because you're the one person with a question in the chat. Because does it really matter what Miami's going to be ranked after week 1? Whether, of course, the dub is what counts. That's all that matters. Where they get ranked, they'll be ranked where they need to be ranked if they win the games that they need to win. But Casey is throwing out a top 15 ranking. If they beat the Gators, I got to think that they're going to be fringe top 15 before that game's played.
Yeah, I would say, Miami's in the 20 to 25 range going in. You play a rivalry game on the road and win. In your hypothetical, blowing out is at least 2 touchdowns, if not 3 scores, right? You would think that's a blowout. In that scenario, I think, But to Mark's point, I also don't necessarily think, like, if let's live in a hypothetical world, like, because that, this is what we're discussing. So let's say Miami goes in ranked 24th, wins the game by 17, comes out the next week ranked 19th. Would you be a little salty at that, depending on the other results around? You might want more than +5. You might want that. But is that really going to really affect your enjoyment of that result and the trajectory of the year? Because again, if we win the games that we need to win on the field, this team pushes for 10 or 11 or 12 regular season wins, which I believe is the firm and expectation it needs to be. The over under for wins this year from Vegas is 9.5, with the over getting the juice. So like Vegas is saying, yeah, this team gonna win double digit regular season games. If that happens, and you're like, and you look back later in December as we're heading to Charlotte for the ACC championship game, you say, man, that's crazy that Miami was only ranked 19 heading into week 2 after beating Florida in Florida by 17. I think you'd be okay with that.
Yeah. 10-2 is proven to be that dividing line. If you take the college football playoff rankings from the last 10 years and apply it to a 12-team playoff, meaning that if you're 10-2, you're safe. If you're 9-3, you've probably got about a 20% chance of making the playoffs, and maybe not even that high. It's something in that range. So 10-2 should be safe. However, we don't know how the committee is going to treat the tilted scales of the SEC and the Big Ten.
Right.
Whether they're going to, so
I would
so
just say
whether
assume they're going to weight those conferences heavier.
So I would like to see it backed up on the field first, without the assumption that they're better, with the committee really weighing, okay, who took care of business outside the conference when these conferences went to work. Florida State's got a game against, who's their big non-conference game? It's, of course, Florida. They've got to have somebody else, maybe Notre Dame. Yeah, Miami's got Florida, etc. Add up those games. Look at those seeded matchups across conferences. And did the Big Ten and the SEC prove to flex the muscles like anticipated? Or were the Big 12 and the ACC better than expected? And therefore, there should be more weight given to their conference play because their conference went out and won some games. Clemson, maybe they don't beat Georgia, but maybe they acquit themselves extremely well in that game. It's a close game.
Mm-hmm.
Those type of matchups go the ACC's way. Of course, the ACC has those games against Notre Dame. They would do well in winning some of those games that they have not been able to win. Notre Dame has a ridiculous record against the ACC over the last 6 or 7 years. They just lost their first game, I think it was last year, in a long time against Clemson.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, you make some good points. It would be nice if it were backed up, but, we talk about, those conferences getting some bias, specifically the SEC. And yeah, I think that will play out. And I think that, even to a larger point, not even, for a different point than the one Mark is making, and I would love to see that, is you think that Fox and ESPN, who have put bushels and bushels and truckloads of money behind those conferences, are going to sit idly by and just let the process happen and not interject and affect it as they see fit and have the ability to do in favor of those two conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC? If you think that they're not going to have a hand in this, I think that, hey, again, you might have fallen fresh up of a turnip truck. So regardless of what it looks like on the field, the money people want it to look a certain way, and given a half of a scintilla of a reason to make it be so, they will.
I'll throw out this scenario, and I do it because I think it's a good scenario to show what I'm getting at, but also because it puts Cam in conflict. So let's take Michigan going 9-3, and they lose to Texas. They lose to Oregon. They lose to Ohio State. But if the preseason rankings come to fruition, those are going to be 3 of the top 6 teams in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And if they look good, as well as you can in losing games, but they're losing 3-point games to those 3, and they finish 9-3, and then they take care of the rest of the Big Ten, beat teams like USC along the way,
mm-hmm.
and then Miami goes 10-2. Let's say they lose to Florida State, and who else is a reasonable loss? They don't play NC State or Clemson.
People are going to say Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech. They lose to Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech's 8-4. Florida State's 10-2. and Miami doesn't really have any good wins past that. Maybe Michigan, even though during the entirety of the 10-year run in the college football playoff era with 4 teams until the Florida State snub, the committee never lifted a team with a worse record above a team with a better record. Now, of course, they had to break ties and decide between 2 teams that had the same record, of course, but they never lifted a team with a worse record into the playoffs above a team with a better record.
Yeah.
And the guy that runs the whole show, and I forget his name, actually made a comment a few weeks ago. It must have been during SEC or Big Ten Media Days, one of the media days, that yes, the schedule is going to be weighted heavily.
Okay.
Even more so than it's been.
We will find out.
Yeah, Falconer TRX, thanks for being here. Of course, 0% chance Miami will lose to any reptile.
There we go. There is, I don't know if you're finding it. There is a question. Louisville, I'm not sure. From Andy Mack in the chat. When was the last time we had this kind of optimistic outlook with the trenches? I'm not trying to drink the Kool-Aid after years of abuse, but I can't help but be impressed with the lines. And, over here multitasking as you, and when I saw that, when Mark was, going on the first part of his answer, it's different because it was still, I think that the lines on both sides are in the upper tier, so we've had some times where usually the defensive line has been pretty decent, but I would say the most optimistic about the line play that we've been recently is probably 2017. So that was, get out of here. Sorry, pop up on my screen, because it happens on websites. Anyway, so that was the year of Gerald Willis III's senior year. Nesta Silvera was a freshman. Greg Russo was a freshman. I think that was his redshirt year. Those guys along the defensive line, Casey McDermott, George Brown, who never did anything here, Tyree St. Louis, along the offensive line, Trevor Darling and Devon Donaldson. That's been back when Devon Donaldson was actually halfway decent, as a freshman All-American. That was pretty much the best that he got, but still. So I would say, 2017, when I think that Miami realistically had a case for, the best defensive line in the conference or the country. I think, in the end, they were given a little short shrift because of the way that the season went. I think that, and I know it, whatever. I think it was closer to Clemson than people give credit for. Clemson just had dudes, and I will say they were better. And if you're looking on an individual basis and going forward, yeah, but during that season, that was a Manny Diaz special. That's leading the hold on, and wasn't that leading the nation in tackles for loss year? Yeah, 111. And then, the 17 and 18 years, 18 tied with Clemson at 136, but Clemson played 15 games in 2018 and Miami played 13 and had the same raw number, which means that the rate and, percentage and everything is actually higher. So if we played 15, it would have been, 150, 160. In terms of tackles for loss. So I would say sometime around then. I'm just going with 17 over 18 simply because I think that we were a little bit more settled along the offensive line to my recollection in that year, in 17. Well, 7 and 6 and 18, and oh yeah, 17. 10 wins, right? Remember everybody? Yeah, 10 wins and da-da-da. Exactly. So yeah, I would literally say the 10-win season. And I didn't even think about that as I was going and just looking up, our state of the U player or position profiles and looking at the numbers. But because what I really wanted to see was what was Gerald Willis's last year, that year and the year after were the years that the defensive line was at an elite level, and then pick out which offensive line was the best on the other side. And I would say that would be the year that we were most confident, comfortable, optimistic. So 2017, if I had to put these units against the 2017 units, offensive line versus offensive line, defensive line versus defensive line, I'm picking this year's. I think that there's just more talent. I think that they're, bigger, faster, stronger, better athletes and everything than 2017. Apples to apples, yeah, I'm picking this year. So I don't think that you'd be drinking the Kool-Aid to be optimistic, but it's been a while since we've been this settled on both sides of the ball, or both lines, I should say.